What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Tro Bro Dude. And before we get into anything, I want to talk about our partner, Underdog Fantasy. If you have not already, please sign up with the promo code SLOP. That's SLOP to get a $100 deposit match on Underdog Fantasy. The link is in the description. If you haven't done that already, you already could have been winning money, actually, because I gave a tip before the last podcast where I had higher on Terry Rozier's points, Kevin Durant's points, and Mason Plumlee's rebounds, and that hit. And I had a few people reach out and tell me that they actually did that. So go on there and do some pick'em if you have not already. And then also, if you're not into that, they also have daily fantasy drafts. We do NBA drafts on there. We do NFL drafts on there. So join us. We have a big announcement coming with Underdog next week. So you're going to want to be signed up, because to be eligible for this thing we're about to do, you will have to be already signed up for Underdog. So sign up today if you have not already. Promo code SLOP, $100 deposit match. You know the vibes. Okay, so speaking of Underdog, Sam, before we get into anything, I actually talked to Nick Rudman from Underdog earlier, and he wanted to say congratulations on being freed from prison because have you seen pictures of the man who was freed today?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm coming to you from Russia right now. I finally got to go home to where I've decided I was. Let's just say I had a side business, and part of the I lost that side business, which is why I had to go on Ball. I've been pretty clear that I'm a communist, and as we all know, Russia is a communist country right now. That's what we're fighting against.
Of course, yes,
is communists in Russia.
Yep.
So yeah,
Vladimir Putin, number one communist.
Yeah. As Dreadbot said, this is COINTELPRO. This is Operation COINTELPRO was putting me embedding me in an American podcast. So I hope you guys won't worry. I might be running a little worse, but I am glad to be home in the mother country. I'm really good that I get to go home.
Well, I know you have a personal bias when it comes to this because you were actually involved in the trade, but do you think that America gave up too much?
I kept going to make that joke sarcastically about that. I saw that a lot of people were very genuinely and you don't just give up an arms dealer for a WNBA player. That is there's an established market for swaps. Go bear trade. Fuck, you don't have to do that anymore. You bring the sovereign citizen home. Also, I don't know what are you worried that there's going to be too many unaccounted for arms in the Russian-Ukraine conflict now?
Well,
because I have news about that.
Yeah, my favorite part about this is that they act as if Putin could not possibly. Putin can only do bad things whenever Victor Bout is around. Apparently, as if everything that he's been doing has been great without him while he's in prison in America. And then in addition to that, I just want to say that how is Kevin Durant ever going to be traded now that we have set the market for?
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
You just can't get good return at this point. It's just impossible. With the Russia's, really set the market. And I think we're just not going to see a lot of prisoner swaps for the foreseeable future. England is pissed, right? England is pissed because.
You got to call England, see if they have anyone. Wait, can we get the WikiLeaks guy? What's his name? Julian Assange.
What I want to know is, it seems that, there was a third team involved. So I want to know what the third team compensated. Was there cash compensation involved? Was there a contract dump, so to speak, involved in this deal as well?
Well, once again, Daryl Morey should be fired for not getting on the phone and figuring out a way to get off this Tobias Harris contract in the deal.
I mean, honestly, I don't. Well, no, I'm gonna leave that alone. Welcome home, Brittany Griner. In all seriousness,
yeah.
Very, very excited. It is.
In all seriousness,
genuinely very good that she got to come home and end that nightmare for her. But suck it to the guys who were mad about that for whatever reason.
Oh my God! No. She should have to spend time in a 10 years in a Russian prison, a work prison or whatever it was, because she had a weed pen on her. Yeah.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Because there were a lot of guys saying, look, it wasn't a fair punishment but then they go to we gave up too much. That's just so fucking funny to like be doing like trade value like armchair quarterbacking of an arms dealer. I guarantee you no one had ever heard of before.
No one ever heard of Paul Whelan, the Marine that is still in Russia.
Right. Yeah.
That exactly. Everyone's losing their mind over. But now I did a little riff on that earlier where as Bill, where I says, I don't know how you don't get Paul Whelan in the deal. I mean, he's a decorated Marine. Yeah, if you're including Victor Bout, you got to get back Whelan.
Yeah, like you can't leave that kind of value on the table. And like you've got Russia over a barrel at that point. You know they need Bout. They need Bout to sow discord and just be evil. God, fuck. Oh, that's so funny. Anyway, I wish it wasn't so funny because it is a serious thing. I'm glad Brittany Griner got to come home. But fuck, God damn it. You can always trust on people to have the worst takes on some of this.
100%.
Rules.
Yeah.
It rules.
Yeah, on things that literally like don't affect them at all. Really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Shout out Vin Diesel for the Instagram post. I don't know if you saw the infamous Instagram post. He thumbs up. I want Brittany Griner home by Christmas. He got it done. So shout out to Vin.
This was his Rock killing Osama bin Laden post. So once again, the Fast and Furious rivalry continues.
Okay, now we're gonna get into real trades that matter, which are trades around contenders in the NBA. And if you have been following this, we've done a few trades, some loose ideas around teams to start the year, but we haven't done an episode where we just dive in and we do full on just trades from contenders. So I'm using contender as a loose term because there are some teams in here that most people probably wouldn't consider contenders, but I only think there's really two teams that have a chance to win the title this year, and that's the Celtics and the Bucks. I think that we've made it known that we both think that the Celtics are the favorites. So why don't we get into our trades?
So this is wait, is that the right? Hold on, that might not be the right.
Is this is your war crime?
This is we'll just start with this war crime because I'm having trouble figuring out how to share individual slides. So this is one of my war crimes. I'd hope to get to this a little bit later. So for those of you listening at home, this is this trade is the Philadelphia 76ers will send out Tobias Harris, and they will receive back Bogdan Bogdanovic from the Hawks and Duncan Robinson from the Heat. The Heat will send out Nikola Jovic, a pick swap in 2027 and the 2023 first round pick for John Collins will be who they receive back. That leaves the Hawks receiving Tobias Harris, a first and a swap, and Nikola Jovic in this trade.
Okay, so all right, this is interesting because at first I thought it was Bojan Bogdanovic, and I was like, wait, I would do this deal. Why? Then I realized it was Bogdan, who currently has a
5 PER, I believe.
Yeah, his knee is probably just cooked. Like there's a good possibility that Bogdan's best days as a player are well behind him. He hasn't really played that much in the last year and a half. One of the reasons why I think it's been hard for Atlanta to trade him is because we don't know what his availability is going to be. I see in the comments they're calling you Sam Kissinger for this. Yes, so
as they should. That's fine. I believe that is a fair feedback on this one. So the idea here is I'm trying to mix up the Sixers. That was one of the tougher challenges, just because the Sixers do have so much dead space. But if you're trading the problem is Tobias Harris also plays. So if you're sending out Tobias Harris, so if you're doing a Tobias Harris deal, you need to get back players who can start, and it needs to be a deal where your minimal cap stuff is going out. So that inherently limits what you can do. And this was about the best I could do for a Tobias Harris trade. You are receiving the Duncan Robinson contract, which is one of the worst in the NBA, but it makes it less blocky. You spread that out a little bit more. You break it down. I think that's an easier contract to move than Tobias Harris. Even next year when Tobias is expiring, like a 3-year, $16 million. If you really are in trouble, you can stretch it and
Sure.
get that down to like 8 million a year. And I don't know, like I think seems like the league is kind of out on John Collins. I sort of get why. So I think this is relatively fair value for the Hawks. They get a guy back who can play in John Collins's role in Tobias.
They get 2 first-round picks for
a swap.
taking on the Tobias Kent. Oh, a
Right.
swap on the second one. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
swap out a second one, and they get a flyer on Jovic. And the Heat, this is do the Heat give up some of their equity for a guy of the caliber of John Collins? But they are getting off the Duncan Robinson contract in the same breath. So
Yeah. They
this
need
was
the thing about the Heat is that they
Mhm.
desperately need a 4 who
Mhm.
can rebound, defend, and shoot. And John Collins can rebound and play help defense.
Mhm.
The only question is his shot, which has been really bad this year. Which is
Mhm.
actually someone brought up earlier the idea of a Tobias for John Collins swap, because I think if I'm trying to contend for championships, I probably would lean towards having a guy like John Collins, just because I think help defense and rebounding at the 4 is so important in the modern NBA. But at
Mhm.
the same time, in the Hawks position, they've been in such a stagnant place with him, where they've had him on the block for like 3 years. They've
Mhm.
never been able to move him. They signed him to this contract, and it's not a bad contract. I mean, he makes $23 million this year. He has 3
Right.
years left after this. He's athletic. He can bring some things to the table. I actually think I don't hate Tobias's fit on the Hawks offensively, because I really just think they need more guys who can shoot. And Tobias isn't the most willing shooter in the world, but he's putting up
Mhm.
5 threes per game, and he's hitting about 40% this year.
Mhm.
And then, like you said, they get the swap in the first for taking on that. And then Tobias's contract is done after next year. So if you
Mhm.
want to go in a different direction, you want to pay DeJounte Murray, you want to
Mhm.
maybe get some other guys around. I actually don't really hate this deal. The
Mhm.
Sixers element of it is interesting to me, because
Mhm.
I'm so broken when it comes to the Sixers right now.
Yeah.
I'd probably do it and just be like, whatever. Like, who
Mhm.
cares really? Because I think in order to like compete, it's tough. It's tough because you don't know what Bogdan Bogdanovic's knee looks like, and you
Right.
don't know if Duncan Robinson is even virtually playable in the playoffs. But what
Mhm.
you do know is that when healthy, both of those guys would be fantastic offensive fits with what the Sixers need, which is
Mhm.
high volume shooters. Bogdan, in his case, a good ball handler, can
Mhm.
be, he's not that terrible of a defender. Those are the exact kind of players the Sixers need.
Mhm.
But the reality is, I wonder, with PJ Tucker looking the way that he does this year,
Mhm.
can you get rid of your starting 4 or starting 3 in this case in Tobias? And you can't really rely on any of the guys from Duncan Robinson to PJ Tucker to Bogdan
Right.
Bogdanovich. So it would be tough from the Sixers perspective. But I also just think like these are the kind of moves that they should be looking for, like ones that
Mhm.
have a little bit of risk, but some upside too, because once again, the team's really going nowhere, and you
Mhm.
got to kind of take these swings. Malik Beasley and Buddy Hield are probably the 2 guys that I would try to get before Duncan Robinson. But if they
Mhm.
don't have the assets to get as a shooter, if they don't have the assets to get those guys, I've been open to the idea of taking on Duncan Robinson's contract. I don't know if I would do it in this scenario, but I actually don't hate this. I actually like this trade for the Heat a decent bit. Like, I
Mhm.
actually think John Collins would be a really nice fit there. They like him,
Mhm.
and he would just be a guy that goes there and is great for them, and everyone hates it. And all they have to do is to get off what is perceived as one of the worst contracts in the leagues, and Duncan Robinson, is give up a first, a swap, and their late first round pick from this past year, Nikola Jovic. Like,
Mhm.
I kind of like if you're making it
Mhm.
a push, if you're Miami, I kind of like it for Miami. I
Mhm.
don't hate it for the Hawks. It's the Sixers end where I'm kind of just like, I don't know if they would do it.
Yeah. No, and that's kind of where it comes back to, is it because like you said, I think this is all about appetite for risk, and
Yeah,
like we said, that's what the thing is, because that's what this is. This is a bet. Can we turn Duncan Robinson and Bogdan Bogdanovich around? Because
sure.
you're buying at hypothetically the right spot. Like, neither of those guys are going to be worse than this.
Yeah,
But the thing is, do they get better? Is the
exactly.
rub.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
And
So
like,
that's my
I,
war crime.
I'm kind of in like a pun on the season situation. And if that is
Mhm.
the case, if you're punning on this season, because I don't see a pathway for them to become contenders this year without
Mhm.
some sort of out of the blue trade I'm not even thinking of.
Mhm.
Um, then I think I'd probably just rather keep Tobias because then he's expiring after the season, or trade in Tobias for 2 expiring contracts now or something. Because I'm worried about taking on that Duncan Robinson contract if he's just truly unplayable. Yeah. And as Dredd said in the comments, Doc will play Duncan Robinson 43 minutes a night, which is a fantastic point and a very scary thing. But I mean, the Sixers do need movement shooters. I'll tell you that much. They're desperate for movement. If only they had a young movement shooter who could also play capable defense that they had on the roster in the preseason. That's unfortunate.
If only you could do that. Here, I'm gonna. We'll move on to your a war crime of your own.
Okay, so I'm gonna add this to the stream now, and this is a trade. Okay, so this is the Cleveland Cavaliers giving up Isaac Okoro, their first-round pick from the 2020 draft, to the New York Knicks for Cam Reddish. Because we know Cam Reddish is on the trade block right now. I've never been a fan of either of these players, just to be completely transparent. Mm-hmm. I've never really saw it with them. Mm-hmm. But the idea behind this trade is that the Cavs just need wings. Like, every team that they're going to need to get through in the East, the Bucks and the Celtics, those 2 teams are really the 2 teams. Like, those are the teams that I would consider the 2 favorites, and I would consider the Cavs slightly behind them, maybe a tier down, and with the upside of maybe getting into that group. But if they do get into that group, they need a guy who's a big body, who can defend, who can shoot. And Cam has always been more theoretical than actual. But maybe in a situation like that, like, the one thing I will say is that, you know, his shooting is down this season, and he's actually been a pretty decently reliable 3-point shooter in his career. I think he's like just below average, but on decent volume for his career. And his defense comes and goes, but his defense can be pretty good. It's the offense that I've never really believed in with Cam, and Cam has tried to fit into this role with the Knicks, but the Knicks don't have shot creators like the Cavs do. And the Cavs have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, who are going to generate a ton of open threes for Cam. That he might be, I think that you could make the argument that he would be their best 2-way wing on the team. Like, that's actually a wing once they get him, maybe other than Dean Wade, who's had a really nice season. Dean Wade for all your accounting needs.
God. Zach loves that joke.
He loves it. It's his favorite. So, and then from the Knicks' perspective, you're taking a flyer on Isaac Okoro. Hopefully he can revamp his career. You didn't really give up much to get Cam Reddish. You gave up a fake first. I don't think you're going to get a ton back for an expiring Cam Reddish. And I think at least with Isaac Okoro, maybe you think there could be a little bit of upside.
Yeah. I mean, this is a development bet, right?
Both.
Because for both sides, you know, it's like, can we, you know, I like these trades, these head-to-heads where it's like, okay, we've seen our guy. We know we can't do anything with this. So let's give it a shot somewhere else. You know, I think it's probably unrealistic that, like, Cam Reddish gets past, like, you know, like Chetty Osman in the rotation or something like that, you know. But, you know, could he give you 80% of what Karis LeVert gives you, freeing that money and those resources up, you know, because that's, you know, spoiler alert for my trade later on, that was also the position I was trying to upgrade. I just was trying to use Cam Reddish and maybe a pick, or sorry, not Cam Reddish, Karis LeVert and a pick to do that. So, like, you know, I think we're thinking along the same lines. I would say, generally speaking, I don't think Cleveland is going to have, like, in real terms, I think, you know, we're talking about this. I don't think Cleveland's going to have a lot of urgency to, like, really tinker with their team. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think they're going to try and do all the work this season. They're in a pretty good spot. I think they might try and see what happens in the playoffs. Like, who knows? Maybe Mobley can survive against Tatum or something like that. You can put the scare on the Celtics, or, you know, something like that. But I think you want to kind of go through the playoffs at least once with this iteration of the team before you start, like, tinkering and upgrading and kind of, you know, just see what happens. You know, the only difference would be that you only have one more year of Karis LeVert and his $19 million. So do you feel urgency to move on from that, you know?
And fill that salary slot. We'll get to that when we get to the Karis LeVert thing. But fill that salary slot, make it so that you're not losing Karis LeVert for nothing in the offseason, and you have nothing to replace him. So that would be the real fear. Although from everything I've heard, Karis LeVert's defense has actually been apparently very much improved this year.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they just want to keep Karis LeVert. We'll see. I'm not the biggest Karis LeVert believer, but I think the Karis LeVert experiment is about over for me. But have you figured out how to pull up the trades onto the screen?
We're just gonna kind of be doing them at random, but I can do that. I can definitely do them one at a time here. So we're gonna the one that I really wanted to go over here was it's the one that I thought made the most sense. This is a trade between the Nets and the Spurs. So this is the Nets receiving Jakob Poeltl and the Spurs receiving Patty Mills, Day'Ron Sharpe, and the semi-Houston, probably Philly pick that they received in the Ben Simmons trade going to the Spurs.
Sure. So that's the future first that they have in 27, I believe.
I think it's a 2024 pick or
2023.
2023 pick. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. So that's a weird trade. That's a weird pick because they put a bunch of protections on it. So it's like the best of Houston, Brooklyn, or Philly. I can't even remember what it is, but it's essentially it will probably end up being the Sixers pick is my guess. I know they said it to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. It's essentially going to be the Sixers pick this year. Is basically what you're. There's some other stuff. There's some possibilities, but that's basically what you're getting. So, I like that trade for both teams. It can't be done until Patty Mills is trade eligible, which is next week. So,
so it's the Poeltl for Patty Mills,
Day'Ron Sharpe to make the salaries work, and
the first round pick.
So it's Poeltl's expiring. I mean, I think if you're a Spurs fan, you might be a little pissed at that because I think you're losing like a little bit of value, but at the same time, I don't know.
Are you really that mad? It's like they drafted Sohan, and Sohan's he's gonna be a big, he's gonna be a center. Unless the shot comes around, he's probably not going to be a 4. I think he's just going to be a really athletic, small ball kind of center guy. I think that they have Charles Bassey on a 2-way right now. I think they might end up guaranteeing his contract at some point. I think he'll be a solid backup big for them. He's also 21 years old. And then you're getting back Day'Ron Sharpe, who you're taking a flyer on, even though I think he's pretty terrible. He's still 20 years old, I think. And then you're also getting a first-round pick, and you bring home Patty Mills. So it's possible. I actually had a trade that was similar to this that I'm going to pull up next.
Okay.
So the reason why I'm actually skeptical if the Nets do this, and I'm not even doing a bit, is because I think that Patty Mills for some reason is seen as Ben Simmons' protector. He's the way they talk about Patty Mills in trade rumors is Ben Simmons needs him because he's he's known him for a while. Australian national team that Ben always bails on anyway. He's also friends with Sean Marks. Apparently the thing that Mike Scotto said last week was that Sean Marks loves him so much because they have the Australian background. They've known each other for a while. Sean Marks worked for the Spurs. And the reason why is that he thinks that after Patty retires, he's just going to give him a job in the front office. But at the same time, you can't make that you can't hold yourself back from becoming a contender because you want to help your friend.
Right.
Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, we have no idea how long they're going to be with the Nets. And getting a guy like Jakob Poeltl, I don't know if I don't love his fit on the Nets, but I actually think that he can do some of the dirty work stuff that we talk about that the Nets always need. He can protect the rim. He's going to rebound like crazy. He's a decent passer. He makes some sense for them in a way that is, if you don't have full trust on Nicholas Claxton, then I think that you could start Jakob Poeltl and use Claxton off the bench as a kind of Swiss Army knife guy.
Right.
Yeah. So
I that's and that's kind of what what I guess my thought was like they do need like some rim protection. I know Nick Claxton's having like a big year, and I think that's the clearest fit because you can make it. The Spurs I think are going to be in the business of doing draft round purchases. You don't need to send them a real player back. You could also do this with like Seth Curry and some other people, but I think they're too important to the way the Nets are constructed to.
Yep. And I think the idea behind having Seth is like you just want around Ben Simmons and your two best players, you just want to have the most shooting possible. And like Patty has proven to be unplayable this year, and Seth, I think, is a little bit more playable. I think in the playoffs he'll be like a good guy coming off the bench for them that will like their goal, their path to contention is just being an unstoppable offense. And I think that Pirtle will bring you some stuff on defense, and their offense with that shooting and with those two is going to be really good. So, all right, I have my trade that I'm going to pull up right now, which is very similar, actually. I have so I actually changed it a little bit because I have the Nets trading for Miles Turner, and I have them trading Patty Mills, Nick Claxton, and Kessler Edwards. And my thought behind this was the Pacers don't really seem like they want to move on from Miles Turner unless they get a really good offer. So maybe this isn't enough for the Pacers. Maybe they're like, we'll just re-sign Miles Turner. He's still 26. Like, he fits enough with our timeline, and we can always trade him later because we've been trying to trade him for fucking 45 years. So maybe they say, we don't want to do a trade like this. But my thought behind it was Patty Mills is expiring, so he's just for salary purposes. Nick Claxton fits their timeline really well. Like, he's like the same age as Benedict Mathurin and Tyrese Halliburton. And then I also think that this trade makes you worse this year. Like, I think I actually like Claxton a lot. Like, I actually think he's kind of underrated. Nets Will has kind of Claxton pilled me. Like, from like
you've taken the Claxton pill.
I've taken the Claxton pill. The only thing that I worry about with him is the same thing I worry about with Jakob Poeltl, which is the shooting. You can do it gives you multiple guys that you can do hacka whatever in a playoff series.
Right.
Claxton, Ben, and then Poeltl if he were to get traded there. Like, that would scare me if I'm the Nets, because if Kyrie and KD are on fire, then a coach is just like, all right, well, then we'll just foul those guys and put them on the line, and they're 40, 50, 60% free throw shooters. We're not really worried about them. But other than that, Claxton, I think he's a pretty dynamic offensive player for a center. I think defensively, he's really good at switching. I think that he's kind of like almost like this futuristic version of what a center could be in the NBA. He's 22 years old. He, once again, fits the Pacers timeline really well. And then you take a swing on Kessler Edwards as a wing prospect, because I think one of the things, I think at guard, the Pacers are set for a decade. I think Mathurin and Halliburton in that starting backcourt is going to be incredible. So you just got to start taking cracks at wings and bigs who fit with those guys. And I think you get two swings here. Claxton, we already know, is good. And then Miles Turner is like, to me, Miles Turner, the only thing that Miles Turner isn't going to help the Nets with is their rebounding problem, because the Nets have the worst rebounding other than the Sixers. I think they're like the third worst rebounding team in the NBA right now, which that he's not going to help that. But what he is going to do is he's going to shoot enough threes, he's going to protect the rim, and he's going to make the Ben Simmons thing work potentially. And if you are Sean Marks, you're probably invested more in Ben Simmons working either to help your team in the playoffs this year, or from the perspective of you want to boost his trade value so that after the year you can move on for Ben Simmons. And I think that Miles Turner, he is expiring, but like as long as you have that extension talk before you trade for him, I think that this deal kind of makes sense for both teams.
I would agree. I think so. That's something that I was, I think the mistake I made when I looked at these deals, because I kind of consider this, I was like, for most teams, I was like, well, the Nets kind of need Nick Claxton. So it needs to be a guy. I didn't really necessarily see Nick Claxton as a piece, but I think in a context like this with the Pacers, it works because he is so young. He is a good big, you are subbing out a guy who can do, a guy who kind of is diet Miles Turner in a way, and, for that you get Kessler Edwards. I wonder if they might haggle over some second round picks or something like that in there. But I mean, that's kind of beside the point.
Sure.
Like it just depends. I would think a deal like this probably wouldn't happen until like the Lakers are for sure out, because I
Yeah.
think that's the thing is they've got a lot of depending on how a bunch of different things go involving the Bulls and the Lakers and all sorts of other stuff. I think they might be able to get a better return somewhere else. But I think this is a good deal to have in the back pocket. And like you said, I do think it like works for the most part for most teams.
Yep. Yeah, I think that this is kind of a win-win. It fits both timelines. It makes sense. If you're the Nets, you got to make a push. Like, you can't just sit on this last year potential of KD and Kyrie. Like you got to make something to put yourself to have the upside to get into that top tier. And I don't really think that they have it right now, but they have a few pieces that they could move to maybe get them there.
Right.
All right. We're going to add your trade to the screen now,
There you go.
which is
I figured it out, by the way. This is one of the most depressing trades I've ever come up with in my entire life. This one, I got done with it and I was sick. I was sick to my stomach. I was like, oh God, this is so gross for everybody involved.
Oh, I have a more depressing Mavericks one if you want to see it after this. So,
oh God.
So just for anyone who's listening, this is the Mavericks getting Mason Plumlee, Terry Rozier, and PJ Washington. I don't hate that. For Davis Bertans, Tim Hardaway Jr., and 2 first-round picks. So I'm assuming the thought behind this is basically the Hornets are just blowing it up. They're going for Wemby. Right. They're trying to be as shitty as possible for the rest of the year, and they get 2 future Mavs picks out of it. They take on bad contracts, but who cares? Like, it doesn't really matter. And you're getting off some contracts and players that you're not crazy about anyway.
Right. So, and that's the idea. They're further down the line too. These are 2025 and 2027 picks. So, the idea here being one of the things I'm doing if I'm in the business of dealing with, the Mavericks is I want picks that are further down the line because the sight unseen thing here is I think this front office is quite frankly stupid. I don't trust them to build around Luka Doncic. I value their picks way down the line way more because I think there will come a time when he just gets sick of this, okay? In 2026, 2027, that is the last year of Luka's deal, The 2025 pick is if something awful happens way beforehand, it probably won't. But, even then, there's a chance these picks are, just outside the lottery.
Sure.
It's a lot better than a lot of the other picks you get. I mean, you are giving up PJ Washington, and that hurts because I think he's one of your only good young players. But
I don't think they want to extend him. From everything we've heard, they didn't extend him before the deadline. He was available for trade at the last deadline for a first-round pick. I think there's a chance that they would do a deal like this. The only part is like those Hardaway deals and the Bertans deals, they're not fully guaranteed. I think we went over that on the bad contract draft. So it's really just for this year and next year where you're having to pay up for those guys. And to get 2 first-round picks back, I don't really see a huge market for Terry Rozier. I think Terry's good, but I also think that a lot of contenders don't need a Terry Rozier type right now. And I think that the market for him, if you're trying to get off that contract, which goes for another 3 years after this, and then you're also just like Mason Plumlee is whatever. He's basically just a throw-in for contract purposes. So I actually what's funny is that and I first looked at it, I was like, well, the Mavericks get a lot of decent players, and the Hornets get 2 not decent players, although Tim Hardaway Jr. has been playing much, much better recently. He's shooting crazy number from 3 over the last 4 games. But at the same time, I kind of like it for the Hornets just because if I'm the Hornets, I want to tank just this year so that I can get potential to have LaMelo with another real star, and then I'll have more picks for the future. I'm going to pull up my Mavericks trade. Okay. And I went in the complete opposite direction.
Okay. Buying for the Mavericks?
I went selling for the Mavericks.
Oh.
So
that's what they probably should do.
That's my thought because this kind of trade that you have right here, I think they're going to wait until after the season to really make a huge move. And I think they are going to want to keep their draft picks for that.
Exactly. And I don't, the other reason I don't think this is realistic, just from a value perspective, is that I think they're going to want a genuine star back. They're not going to do a half measure like this. They're going to do the Gobert thing.
Yeah,
for
they already have really good role players. The problem is
Right.
they don't have a second star.
Right. The idea here is to like bring Terry Rozier in as like Jalen Brunson light, just to get a little bit more creation,
Sure.
shot making, all that other stuff, and then get off your bad contracts. And then, you've got Plumlee to shave some money, and then you've got a young player in PJ Washington who can help
Yep.
out.
So
okay. I like
my
this.
trade is the opposite direction, like I said. So the Mavericks get Patrick Beverly and Kendrick Nunn and a top 5 protected 2027 first round pick. Dredd said he's going to throw up in the comments, so it's a good trade. So the Lakers get Christian Wood and Frank Ntilikina. Ntilikina is just included for contract purposes to make the money work.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I say this is that there have been reports recently that the the Lakers are trying to pick a direction here. They either want to keep Russ and try to make that work, because he's actually been pretty decent for them off the bench. Not that I really think that matters in the playoffs, as history has shown, but they are trying to maybe do some upgrades where they only give up one of those picks. They can protect it. They can get a guy in for this year and potentially another. I know Christian Wood is not a perfect player,
right?
But he is a very talented offensive player. And I think if there is one situation where he might thrive, I thought that the Mavericks getting him for what they got him was totally fine. I think for the Lakers' perspective, it might be a little bit too much to give up that first round pick for a player like Christian Wood on an expiring contract, especially when I still think they're going to try to get Kyrie after the season. And they're not going to, but like, if they really want Kyrie after the season, this is the kind of way of being like, hey, we traded the pick, we made an all-in move, LeBron, but to make us like better this year, but we also now have the ability to sign Kyrie after the season. And we can do so we basically have both lanes where we're not giving up everything,
right?
But we also have the option to sign Kyrie after. So I don't know if the Lakers would do this. I think that the Lakers might be hesitant to do it. They might need more to give up that first round pick.
Yeah, I think what would depend on it from them is what happens if it does fall in the protected. Like I think the devil would be in the details here. Does it bump to 28 unprotected? Because then you're like, okay, so are you in the business now of peddling the 2030 pick if you need to make an upgrade the next season? So it would be some stuff like that. I don't know. I like this trade. I think Christian Wood, given what I've supposedly heard about, because all of a sudden Anthony Davis is a center who just cannot play with plotting bigs anymore. When did they change their thinking on that? I guess is the thing. It's more like everybody's kind of known that, but
for
now
decade,
it's like,
yeah.
But now it's like, the Lakers won't even consider it. And it's like, okay, well, why did you build your team that way? You didn't win a championship that way. I will say, given the players were a lot better, but I do think Christian Wood fits a lot with what they've, come up with. I don't think he's a particularly winning player, but I think, if Christian Wood, that's the front court he needs to be with if he's going to succeed, is a front court of LeBron and Anthony Davis. If he can't succeed there, where can he succeed? So
yeah,
I actually kind of like it for both teams. I don't think the Mavericks brain trust has the
balls,
the humility you would need to have to actually take your team in the right direction. You've got to admit, man, we really fucked this up, and I don't think they're gonna.
It's really hard to go to your superstar player and be like, hey, we're punting on the year.
Right.
It's tough, and I get it, but if you want to look from a long-term perspective, they can trade after this 2023 pick is gone at the draft. Once the Knicks get it, assuming that the Mavericks aren't in the top 10, which I think they'll probably be just outside of that. Maybe a little bit better if they continue to, play the way that they've been playing. But then you go, well, we have all of our picks to trade now after the draft. Plus we have that extra Lakers first that's been coveted. That's how you get a second star. That's how you get a star that really matters.
And to your point, you're going to have $21 million of Spencer Dinwiddie expiring next year. You're going to have, as we talked about, the Bertans contract that's mostly non-guaranteed for the year after. So essentially expiring, give or take, $5 million or whatever it is. So that's a pretty good place to start. Is 3 first-round picks and all that expiring money. That's a pretty good way to get, I don't know, Bradley Beal or something like that. So
someone.
Well, yeah, I think that's actually probably more in line now that I think about it. Your trade, I think, is more realistic than mine, just in terms of it, because I think that more fits with what I think their brain trust is thinking. I think they're thinking get another star next to Luka, but I just don't think they're gonna. I don't think they have the creativity or the the wherewithal to like understand small step back to big step forward next year.
Right. The only way that they do a trade like this is if Luka gets hurt. That's really it.
Yeah.
It's like with the Dame with the Blazers last year, where Dame gets hurt, and then it's like, okay, now we have the flexibility, the options to do, because we're not contending anyway, so who really cares? So if that is the case, that's the only way that I see a trade like this happening, but I like the concept of it. Right. And if you are watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast, this is where it's going to end, and we're going towards the Patreon route. So sign up for the Patreon. The link is in the description if you want to hear the rest. I have a bunch more trades here. I know Sam does
gross
as well.
ones. I've got some really gross ones.
If you want to hear some war crimes,
just to tease the Patreon, the next one I have on my slide is the one that I wanted to show Trill that's going to make him mad. So this is we cut off at a perfect spot. I'm very excited to see his reaction here.
All right, so let's get into it. Let's see.